Welcome to our first session of our webinar on adapting your SEO strategy in the world of AI search. Just a quick roadmap, and then we're going to go ahead and dive in. Like I said, this first session is really going to be focused on what's happening, what is just like trash in the market, and LinkedIn posts that are there for some clicks and engagement. What really should we be paying attention to? Next week, really excited to be sitting down with the CEO of Graphite. They're an excellent kind of like SEO tool, really lean into topic authority. I've been a fan of them for a while. So we're going to kind of talk about the future of blogs and do they still have a point? All this content, like what do we do really a little more content specific? And then in 2 weeks from now, we'll be sitting down with one of our clients and just kind of hearing like how they're actively doing this. So a lot of the things that we'll be talking about, getting a more practical example and answering some of your questions. So it should be a really good couple of weeks here. But Kaylee, to kick us off today, can you just maybe start with a 4-minute overview on AI search, what that actually means, and maybe even helping us like some of these terms, GEO, AEO, whatever, and between like an actual AI search, AI overview, rankings, and just kind of help us level set.
Yeah. So traditional SEO, you searched Google, you got a result that linked you right back to your website. That's an organic result. They still exist. They're still working. But obviously AI has changed that. So we now think of AI search in a couple different functions. The first thing that rolled out is AI overviews. So I think everyone who's using Google right now knows pretty much no matter what you search, there's going to be an AI summary of some sort right at the top. Those have undergone a lot of changes in the last year. They now better link out to sites. They are now being tracked as organic results in Search Console. Now, you can't specifically say, like, I showed up in an AI overview, but they are now tracking actual results and showing in AI reviews, which is an impression or an improvement. So that's a piece of AI. Then you have AI mode, which Google recently released in Q2, and that is Google's answer to a ChatGPT, a Perplexity. It is different than Gemini. It is the in Google AI search, and their intention is that you essentially don't go to any of those other platforms. You just have that LLM experience right in Google search. So you'll know now if you're using it, even on mobile, you'll get the pop-up that says like, do you want to just search in AI mode? And it's a separate tab from Google search. Those results are also being tracked in Search Console, not separated out. They're all being looped in as organic traffic right now, but it's its own separate thing from AI overviews, AI modes, and then you have LLMs, which are your ChatGPTs, your Perplexity, your Gemini, and that's where a lot of this AI search is focused on. Those are the ones that have their own algorithms. They're very personalized search experiences. They're not always linking out to sites. We found like 60% of brand mentions are unlinked. They're just a brand name that says like, if you want content, try Composely, no link. And then they're giving you results based on what it knows about you. So the prompting is different. The rank tracking doesn't really exist. And they're pulling from different places. They're pulling from a Bing algorithm. They're starting to pull from Google algorithms recently, pulling in like map packs and local results. So they just have a different function than Google did originally, and a different level of engagement and interaction. So when we talk about AI search, we think of traditional SEO is happening in Google, it's happening in those Bing results. AI overview is impacting a lot of those organic results. AI mode is its own tab from Google, and LLMs are their own separate AI search entity altogether. And what you'll see now is everyone's calling it something different to how do we deal with this? You get a GEO, you get an AEO. Any I'm missing? There's some good ones out there.
Okay, well, you could not have teed me up better. So I did
Okay.
impromptily create a poll. So everyone, I would love to know what are you calling this? Whoever coins the term that sticks, like good for them. But very curious what this new world of SEO and new world of AI is. I will say if I'm going with my literal brain, it's still SEO. It's just a search engine. Like it's never been Google optimization, even though I get the connotation has been Google. If I can get on my soapbox, anything that's a search engine and you optimize it is SEO. Reddit, YouTube, LinkedIn has an element of
Yeah.
optimization, any AI model. But of course, we all have to, we're marketers, so we like to call things something new to
And
know.
I think SEO has gone through so many new names when you think of when Siri came out and voice search became a thing and Alexa, and it's at the
Hmm.
end of the day, it's all good SEO. And we'll talk about it, but when the functions of the targeting don't really change, it's kind of still the same concept, but it is fun to put a new name on it and make it
I
sound
know.
really scary and expensive and techy. That's like the fun part for
Of
marketers.
course. I am sharing if you guys are at your screen and can see, but if you're not, so the four
Search.
options were AEO, which is answer engine optimization, GEO, more of the generative engine optimization, just AI search, and then my personal favorite, SEO. Still SEO, guys. Thank you to the four people who agree with me. But the more popular is just AI search with about 50, half of you saying that that's kind of what you're referring to. If you come back next week, which I hope you do, I may ask the same thing again, just, to get some other folks' opinion, but very, very interesting. I think actually AI search is the thing I'm leaning towards as well. But so one thing I want to hone in on is there's all these different I think you did a great job of explaining there's AI overviews and still kind of our traditional. Here are some links. Take your pick on what you want to look at, the AI mode of Google, and then all of these other more LLM based um, search experiences. How should we be thinking about like tracking or do we need to actively be thinking about different content, different types of content, maybe different tactics for each one of them? Or is it now that actually all of them are moving into the same, like they all want the same things, so we just need to kind of understand what those things are and implement it? Or do you need a different content strategy for each type of search result now?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think what we're seeing right now is kind of good old SEO is still at the foundation of appearing in a lot of those. It's still great content that meets your audience where they're at, that answers the questions your audience is asking, that speaks to the things that you're an expert in, right? If I'm writing for the Composely website, I'm not going to go write about watch content just for the sake of ranking anymore. There used to be a huge strategy behind like, let's just put everything we can out there. Let's affiliatize the website. Let's get everything we need out of it. And I do think that's one of the big shifts now is that kind of content doesn't really work anymore. That high level, anything to rank, anything for traffic, it just doesn't really exist anymore. What really works right now across all of them, across even a standard SEO ranking, across an LLM is content that's actually relevant to your brand, that establishes your brand as an authority in what you're trying to be, that points out to all of these algorithms that are looking for who is this brand? What do they know about? Why should we trust them? Why are they authority? If you have that content on your site that says, like, well, I am the authority. I know everything about this topic. I'm the thought leader in my industry. People quote me, people cite me, people want to be like me. And that I think is still has always been a great content strategy, has always been my personal SEO philosophy. And I think now we're seeing it's just more important moving forward as the big shift is that these LLMs care about your brand. They care about who you are. They care about the way people talk about you. They're looking on review platforms. They're looking for mentions. Even unlinked brand mentions have more weight now than they ever have before. And it
Mhm.
becomes more about your entire brand ecosystem online than simply like, let's get an article out there because it's going to rank and drive a lot of traffic to site. I do think that era of SEO and traffic for the sake of traffic is probably on its way out. And it
Yep.
becomes more of a brand era, which I don't know if you're a marketer. I think that's the
Exciting.
best. I love a brand marketing.
Yes. Well, and I just saw, granted, it's completely biased because it is from G2 Crowd, but G2 just put out that they are the most referenced site in AI search in like the software category, which is quite a big claim to make. I actually believe it. I'm not surprised by it from everything we've seen. But good for them to get to say like
Yeah.
we are like they are the most referenced
Mhm.
source of data. I think something. and we'll probably talk a little bit more about this with content next week, but that I've seen that is almost counterintuitive of what you said is that they care about your brand, but it's the capital B brand. It's the macro holistic brand.
Mhm.
And in the actual more micro level piece of content, if you're writing something that's overly flowery or you have such a overly distinctive, like, especially if I would say probably you lean more into a conversational or casual tone of voice, and you're not just very directly, succinctly answering questions or making the point of the article clear, it can actually have the opposite effect. And so you think you're leaning into like, okay, well, let me go lean into brand and I'm going to go have this really distinctive brand voice and super quippy and puns and which is not bad. And there are moments and channels that that is excellent for. But for LLM, they get really confused. They don't understand sarcasm. They don't understand puns very well. Um, Side note, one of my favorite things when we were early on testing content creation with AI, we put in one of our clients, which I won't name, but one of our client style guides that said they want to sound caffeinated, like they want the tone to be caffeinated. And of course, we got a lot of coffee jokes. I was
Yeah.
like, that's not what
A
that
lot of
means.
emojis, a lot of coffee
It
jokes.
doesn't, it's just, it probably will get there, but like for where we are probably in at least the next 12 to 18 months, like leaning into brand is just having a unique perspective, is having a clear, unique value prop of who are you in the market, what uniquely do you solve, and why you are the authority to talk about it. But then when you're talking about it in your blog content, yes, blog content is still needed. It's
Mhm.
being a little, I don't want to say dry, but just very succinct, clear understanding good structure. Again, things that like a lot of humans would want, which is can I easily um, scan through this? Can I easily get what I'm looking for? And then they can take that and put it into their algorithm and their LLM pattern recognition to create content.
Yeah, I think it's if you think of the AI tools as scanners, they're not seeking to understand, they're seeking to like scan, pull, and go as fast as they can. And they don't want to sift through like a hilarious joke or like a great personal anecdote. They want to know like, where are my numbers? Where are my bullet points? Here's the question. Where's the answer? Great, you've got it. I'm going to go. They're scanning. They're kind of lazy. If you've ever used them and worked with them, they don't read documents fully. They make a lot of educated guesses. They're intended to work as quickly as possible and as efficiently as possible.
And they're very
And
much trying to make you sound like they want you to feel like you're right.
yes, they're always going to make you feel right. And that makes them dangerous sometimes, where you're like, actually, I don't know if I am right, but thank you so much. Where you have to really parse through that. And it's because they're intended to be yes machines. They're intended to always have an answer, no matter if they don't have the information. And in order to get the information, they're just scanning as quickly as they can. So if you think of content of less like, would someone read this and laugh out loud, and more like, does this get my point across? Does this get my information across? The information that we're seeing successful is like proprietary data points, surveys, things that nobody else has. Like that becomes a brand voice more so than a great tone is like, well, what insights can you offer that nobody else has access to because only you have access to those experts in your industry?
Yep. And it really is where I love like the age of marketing, the brand era is here because you can have a more succinct kind of briefly getting to the point in a blog, but then repurpose that so that you can have that LOL moment on a social post. But you need to be thinking about it and truly let me write a blog post. Let me just say like, hey, I wrote this blog post and put it out on like that's just not where we are anymore. And you can build that kind of brand ecosystem by
Mhm.
really activating each channel. I know Teresa just put in the chat that I have also heard that is explain it like it's an intern, explain like it's a 6-year-old, explain like it's a new hire who needs all that good context and guidance to make sure they
100%.
understand. I feel like one of the questions that comes up a lot is we are all very spoiled when it comes to creating an SEO strategy for just Google because there are so many great tools, both to understand how people are searching, like an Ahrefs, a SEMrush, an SE ranker, as well as tools to help you kind of grade your content. I will not go down the rabbit hole of whether or not those tools are actually helpful in creating good SEO. But there are so many tools out there designed to Google. Are there tools right now, like how can we kind of, as people who love data and helping to guide us, where should we be thinking about building that AI strategy and understanding the nature of the landscape?
Yeah. I think there are a lot of people trying to build the tool right now, right? There's a lot of people that want to be the AI SEMrush, the AI Ahrefs. There are a lot of tools out there, and some of them are really cool. Some of them are great. We have tested majority of them. And I will say what we're seeing is that while they have great insights, something like a rank scale, a profound, they have really great insights. They're not able to capture information in the same way that SEMrush and Ahrefs are. So you're not going to be able to find information about like when people search this or prompt this, you pop up because all those searches are so custom and they're so personalized. And what we found when we do test, like, okay, well, I care about if someone searches give me a good content writing service, does Composely come up or not? And I can track that 100%. But then when you look at what's actually happening daily, those results change from day to day. So I'll actually show you quickly. Um, in one of the tools that we're testing right now, we're tracking daily the results for best content writing service for my business, and we're tracking it in Gemini. And what you're seeing here is that every single day, those results change in Gemini. The order that Composely appears in, we went from number one to number two to 20th to 13th. The amount of citations they provide changes every day. The kind of content that they're citing changes every day. So it's much more difficult than the Google algorithm, where we might say, like, once you hit that keyword ranking, you're kind of just floating around. Maybe from one to five, it changes, but it's always the same concept. That's not how this works. And it's also different for every LLM. So that level of tracking you would have to do in Gemini, in GPT, in Perplexity, and in each of their models as well. Because it also depends if someone's using 4.0 versus 3.0 versus mini, what kind of results they get back. And it just makes traffic tracking so difficult. So I think it's so new. Everyone's trying to capture it. Where we're seeing success is starting to build out the dashboarding around what happens when AI traffic gets to your site? What kind of AI traffic is getting to site? Is it coming from ChatGPT? Is it coming from Perplexity? And then when it gets there, how engaged are they on site? Are they bouncing? What pages are they visiting? What kind of leads are they generating? Are they generating leads? Right now, what we're seeing is it's a small percentage of traffic when it's AI traffic. It's maybe 2% of overall traffic, if that. It's very engaged traffic. If they're getting to you from AI, they're spending more time on page, they're more likely to convert, they're engaging with more content on site. So while it's a small subsect, we know that it's a really engaged audience, which makes it worth tracking. But the problem is the big question mark is how did they get here? We know they got here from ChatGPT, and I don't know how they got here. So there's auditing available to think about, like, how do these LLMs think about my brand? If I want to know who's winning in my industry, how are they thinking about my competitors? And we can get that information. But to me, the big missing piece right now is what did they type in to get here? And what are they asking that's getting them to my site? And I do feel like that's still the missing piece right now, where we're starting to rely on, okay, but we know when they get here, we can at least track what happens there.
Well, and the modeling piece is so interesting because I have heard people talking about, some of these models are pulling from 2024.
Mhm.
I could go and spend all of 2025 completely optimizing to this, redoing it, whatever. But people who aren't in a model that has access to the web, it's not going to make a difference in how you showed up a year ago. And I think that's an important piece. I'm going to just kind of get to the punchline. I have found it very interesting that you've said that a lot of these LLMs are actually pulling from Bing results more than Google results, which feels like a bit of a surprise. 2025, Bing is relevant. What's happening? Can you share why that is or kind of the bet we're taking from the early tests we're running with some clients?
Yeah, well, what we've seen is in the early days, OpenAI, which is ChatGPT's processor, and Microsoft had an agreement. They have a partnership in place. And so, what it actually started looking like was the better you did on Bing, the better you did in ChatGPT. That's actually where they were pulling their algorithms and their results from because Google's algorithm was so protected. They're developing their own LLMs. They don't want to give out that access. And so, Bing became the easier way to do what the ChatGPTs do, which is essentially they go ask the question in Bing, they get the results, they populate their own information, their own algorithm. They're not doing it on their own necessarily. And so what we've seen in clients is when you have great Bing visibility, when you start to look at Bing, your ChatGPT visibility goes up. When your Bing performance is up, your referral sessions from AI go up with it. So we're seeing that correlation there in the last month. There's been reports that ChatGPT is pulling more from Google's algorithms now. They're pulling in some of those local map pack results. They're pulling from even like local search ads, a lot on that local business information side where you're going to get that Google business profile that Bing doesn't necessarily have. But what we're seeing is the core of a lot of these AIs right now are coming from Bing. And that actually paying attention to Bing matters about as much as paying attention to Google if you care about showing up in AI search at the moment.
Yeah, it's so fascinating. I knew eventually that was going to have to come to a head, but I do think this reporting piece is really important. I've been on it for a while. It is your job as a marketer to help start right now, if you haven't already, the education process of what's going to happen to a lot of your data to your direct supervisors and even leadership. Because oftentimes organic has said, like, is our organic traffic going up and to the right? Are our impressions, are our clicks, which should lead to traffic, which should lead to conversions, the organic funnel. With zero click search, with AI, you are organic traffic will go down. Will it go down today? Will it go down a year from now? It really is probably going to depend on your industry and how quickly your buyers are adapting or adopting, I should say, AI search in their day to day. But I would just recommend that you start that expectation setting now so that when it does happen, it doesn't look like it's a CYA excuse. You're like, I've prepared you for it, and here's what we've been doing to adjust. Hey, instead of looking at organic traffic, we are going to look at what happens when they're on our site. We have less people, but are they more engaged? That's really what we should start shifting to. And so I think as marketers, I'd really recommend taking Q3 to shift some organic tracking, organic reports, changing the narrative that you're doing internally, because I think if you start now, it's going to limit oh gosh, we like, okay, our buyers are now really on AI and suddenly our organic traffic's dipped. That would just be my caution or my tip.
And I think thinking of I'm a lifetime SEO, so I always think of what's happening in organic search. It's my favorite GA4 filter. But I think that we're seeing behavior shift towards actually SEO is a result of not just organic search traffic, but referral traffic. That's where the AI traffic is tracked in is referrals, is getting clicked somewhere else. It's happening in direct traffic. Like we said, almost 60% of ChatGPT references are unlinked. They're just saying, like, here's a brand you should go check out, and people are directly going to your brand. And so that direct traffic starts to have a direct correlation to whether or not AI visibility is happening. And I think great SEO reporting starts to be about the narrative of here's how all of these things influence what we're doing organically and how all these things come together to drive leads and drive ROI. And being able to take the narrative from traffic to ROI, I think makes the difference in that value of SEO in a world where I imagine there are stakeholders and leaders that say SEO is dead. And if I had a dollar for every time anyone's ever said that in the last 10 years, SEO is dead. Let's go do something else. And I think it still becomes about like, well, hold on, Google still has 90% of the search market. People still use Google. 90% of our organic leads at Composely still come from Google. Some of it's come from referrals, but we're still reliant on Google for leads. So I think it becomes more about crafting a story of all the pieces that play into SEO and organic now and less about Google gets results. I think there's a bigger story there now.
Yep. So I want to end because we're almost at time on that piece. I am going to launch a poll to Kaylee's earlier point that AI tracking is hard and the prompts are weird and there's a lot of things going out, we are also actively trying to bring our clients better AI tracking and dashboards. So we are launching kind of an initial beta program for a handful of new clients and current clients to get in and recognize that we're learning together. So I am going to launch a poll if you are interested in learning more about that or some of the newer services that we kind of want to start piloting to see if it's valuable. Let us know. If not, no worries. But I do think what you said of the holistic picture, looking at the brand and branded traffic, direct traffic. My kind of final words for our session today would be I still think Google has legs. If you have leadership giving you pressure to stop or reinvest in SEO, I think you're losing opportunity. And if you have competitors who don't do that, or your competitors do pull back and you stay strong for probably at least the next year, again, depending on your buying persona, you could actually see an increase because you're going to go take voice of the market from competitors who are all fleeing from organic. Now, I say that in you can't just stick your head in the sand and say, okay, we're going to keep doing organic. You need to be doing what Kaylee said, this holistic view. What is your broader brand reputation? Can you do a digital PR play? Making sure that you are maintaining and staying strong in what works with Google while preparing for the 12-month mark where you might start to see that dip and now you are prepared. So I think it's a yes and, but I do caution for like 75% of people out there, if you're just pulling out of organic and saying content's not worth it, don't need to focus on technical health anymore, you actually are probably leaving some leads on the table. So that's my just like in the world of AI, staying steady, don't freak out, keep educating, keep learning, but don't necessarily feel like you have to make a rash decision. Kaylee, what are you kind of maybe leave us with on kind of how you're approaching this?
Yeah. I think AI runs on an adoption curve. You've got your early adopters in there right now. We're starting to get to the middle of that bell curve. But if you look at some of the sentiment that's happening, even publicly right now, people are already starting to become resistant to AI, to purely AI generated anything. And I think we're going to see the way that that perception shifts rapidly. And I think Nicole's point about like, embrace what's new, but stick to what works. I'm a total believer in good AI search is just good SEO. It's good content, it's a clean technical site, it's a great brand presence, it's good digital PR. It's all those things that have always made SEO work really well are still working today in an AI search environment. So I love embrace it all, try it all, but I do think don't fix what's not broken. Keep to what's working, and know that that adoption curve and that AI growth has a long way to go from here. So I don't think we're at the everything's on fire point of life yet.
We are not. We are not the little dog in the meme with the fire around it yet. Maybe in other aspects of our lives. Kaylee, thank you so much. Kaylee will be back with us in our last round, our last webinar to chat through some actual tactical things that she's working on to, like I said, prepare for the future while not reacting too rashly to the present. But next week, like I said, we will be meeting with the CEO of Graphite and really diving in a little bit more to some of the content pieces. Like Haley said, good content, but what does that mean today? How do you still kind of optimize to these LLMs and humans and Google algorithms? But enjoy the rest of your week, and we will see you next Wednesday. Thanks so much, everyone.